Morningstar specialises in evaluating investment funds. But even the experts at Morningstar find it very difficult to identify which funds will outperform in the future. Daniel Sotiroff is a senior analyst in the research department. He says the most reliable indicator of future performance is how much you pay in fees.
You really have to take more of a patient perspective, look at like the drivers of what long-term performance are. And the number one driver, regardless of what type of investment you're in, it's really fees. Like you really got to pay attention to the fees you're paying. That is a persistent advantage regardless of the market environment. It's always going to be there. That's probably the number one most important thing. We found that in other studies that we do. We do a fee study every year, and the results always come back the same. It's always fees that drive. I mean, I feel like I'm beating a horse to death at this point talking about it, and I'm sure we all have. But it's so important, and there's still people out there that I think don't quite understand it. So whenever we can, we try to bring that up.
There are basically two types of funds: active funds and passive or index funds. Active funds are generally far more expensive.
The best way to start out is just start out with basic broad index funds, and the broader the better and the cheaper the better. That's a good place to start. And then if you want to spend the time and maybe invest a little bit of your time and resources into actually trying to understand what an active manager is actually doing, then you're going to have to go down that route. Now understand you're probably going to be taking on some risk, and be prepared that you may not always perform very well.
So if active funds are more expensive, riskier and prone to poor performance, it begs an obvious question. Why do so many advisors still recommend active funds?
I don't really know. I think some of it might have to do with they see something that's performed really well in the past. I think that's a lot of it. I think a lot of people anchor to past performance. And the way I've always tried to explain that to people is like, that's a really good starting point, but you really need to make sure that that's actually what was supposed to happen. That the actual drivers of what the managers are doing in the background are actually showing up and, giving you the performance that you would expect at the end of the day. And that's a very, very challenging proposition to actually go through and evaluate. We've certainly had a number of funds here that have challenged us in many ways and caused us to test theories and throw theories out the door and rethink theories and whatnot about what's going on inside of them. So it's even for like the professionals like myself, it's a very, very difficult undertaking to do.
Daniel Sotiroff says he would never say never invest in an active fund, but he warns most investors greatly underestimate the amount of research entailed. Distinguishing between luck and genuine skill in an active manager is extremely challenging.
You do have to take the time to understand what is going on. And that's where I think a lot of people get tripped up, is they don't want to put in the work to actually understand what is actually going on underneath the surface. I see a lot of people, like, they jump to conclusions, or they come up with a theory and then they kind of just like end it there. And I'm like, well, no, that's not actually what this actually is at the end of the day. And so that can pose a little bit of a challenge.
So think very carefully before you buy an active fund. Even full-time professionals struggle to evaluate the best ones to invest in. Can you honestly do any better?